You're watching Stockwatch. I'm Simon Brown, and joining me to unpack your stock-related questions today, David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities, Chantal Marx from FNB Wealth Investments. Be sure to send your questions through email, stockwatch@bdtv.co.za, SMS 413921, on Twitter @BusinessDayTV using hashtag Stockwatch. Chantal, David, appreciate the time. Chantal, let's start with you. Perhaps a bit of a bigger to narrow down. We had the strikes on Iran over the weekend. The oil price action on Monday confused me because it wasn't nearly as strong as I thought. Then maybe peace in our time. Oil has subsequently back below $70. I think we're 20% off the highs of Monday. It tells me two things. One, there's a lot of oil around there in planet Earth. And two, woe is Sasol.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lots of oil on planet Earth, loads more than what's being consumed currently, is actually the prevailing narrative, and why we didn't really see a marked reaction. We did see a reaction in the oil price when Israel first struck Iranian missile sites, but I think that was about the best that the oil price could hope for, given the demand-supply fundamentals. The reality is that the demand side remains quite weak. The outlook for global growth is very uncertain and definitely lower than it was at the start of the year. And I think that the reaction on Monday was a function of that. Why we didn't have a broader market reaction, I think, is the bigger question for me. From an equity market perspective, a bond market perspective, gold price, why we didn't see a reaction there is an important question, and it could highlight perhaps some complacency.
Absolutely. Notwithstanding, we're about a week away from maybe it's 2 weeks away from the 90-day pause. David, I mean, we've got lower GDP. We've got OPEC Plus increasing production. I mean, there's plenty of oil out there. And
there is plenty. And I think it's around. There was fears that Iran would close the Straits of Hormuz. I don't know how to pronounce it. Hormus. You decide. And I think the fact that they didn't do that, because 20% of the world's oil is shipped through that very narrow passage. And once they held back, and I think mainly Chinese oil goes through there, so they wouldn't have risked that, certainly not Iran. And the other thing is that Trump has now changed his tune and said, no, it's okay for Iran to continue to supply the Chinese and so on. So there's been no pullback from his point of view. And I, to be honest, I think there is a lot of oil, and it suits Trump to have a lower oil price. That's
Sure.
why he's got that drill, baby, drill. He wants lower oil prices, and it suits us as well. It's a bit of a scare when oil starts to go towards 80, particularly as we're trying to get, on top of inflation. So. Yeah.
And to Chantal's point, David, around market complacency, because, I mean, there hasn't been many times America's bombed Iran and got into a Middle Eastern war, and the market kind of shrugged, and that notwithstanding, we had records.
It's regional. Yeah, it's regional. It's not really affecting. Look, it's quite remarkable. I have to say, I just watched wide-eyed yesterday as we headed towards a new high in the S&P. We're about less than 1% away, and probably with the next move from Powell, which is going to come, we'll easily pass through that. So I'm just saying, okay, whatever you want to do, throw bombs at each other, carry on like you are, as long as the market keeps going. That's the only thing that I can watch and have control over, because everything is just a mess. Everything else is kind of a mess and difficult to understand, especially those commodity markets.
No, I'll take your point on that. Markets are what we do understand, albeit a little bit, but a little bit more. David, let's stay with you. Question comes through. Remro, I've held it for 2 years, gone nowhere. Should I bail and go somewhere else?
I have no idea. I've been anti-Remro for as long as I can remember. Ever since they unbundled Richmond and Goldfields and all the other stuff that came out of the British American Tobacco. Since then, I think they've struggled to find direction. And I wasn't overly impressed with Mediclinic's results as well, battling there in the one area which we thought would be very positive, which would be Switzerland. So I don't know how to. I think there are better parts of the world that you can invest, if you're really desperate. But I'm not a great favorite of them. I don't think they've used their money all that well. They are trying now, but. Anyway, I'll leave that to Chantal.
Chantal,
she's probably
your thoughts on Remro?
Yeah, I mean, as David said, they're trying now. I do see a commitment from management to really manage the assets that they have. We've had several unbundlings, kind of separate listings, stuff happening around their acquisitions, the full takeout of Mediclinic, which I'm not 100% sure of, but I did like the Heineken Distell story from a longer term perspective. Obviously, there's been growing pains there, but I do see a path towards recovery and real value unlock from that transaction, because the Distell deal was made at a pretty good price for Heineken, and they, of course, Remro got the combined entity. What are the other kind of areas? They've got a little bit of financial services exposure in the insurers. The insurers are ticking along nicely. They're doing the right things. You're basically getting a little basket of SA Inc. when you're buying Remro. And then some unlisted exposure like Heineken and CIVH. And the CIVH thing is very dependent on what happens at the competition tribunal with Vodacom. So, yeah, I see a scope for the discount narrowing. That could perhaps be a bit of provide a bit of an uplift. But, yeah, I mean, I would longer term rather invest directly in the stuff I like.
Yeah, and in most cases,
Simon,
many you can. David?
There's so much around around Wi-Fi and spreading, digitization and so on, and nothing's really come of that. That's where the whole growth was going to be, in terms of that area, all on the technology side. And for years we waited for something to happen there. I don't know. I just shrugged my shoulders.
Yeah, but I
think they should. Yeah, you got to avoid anything that's down in Stellenbosch. I think I think they've had their time.
Careful, David. They'll send people.
Not Stellenbosch,
Yeah, and the Stellenbosch peeps will send people. Chantal, a great question coming through. Naspers process. Do I buy both of them or one of them? In which case, which one? Chantal, Naspers process. Do you need both? Do you pick one?
No, I think you can pick one. With Naspers, you get a little bit of additional exposure in the form of the South African assets within the stable. And that would be Take-A-Lot and Mr. Delivery and a couple of other bits and pieces. But it really doesn't make a big difference. Naspers also trades at a deeper discount to its underlying value relative to Prosus, because it's kind of doubling up on the discount within Prosus as well. So I think if you have a very long investment horizon and you're comfortable with the tiny bit of SA exposure, I'd probably buy Naspers. But if you are partial to having European tech exposure, then Prosus is the one for you.
David, have you got a preference between them? At the core, they're Tencent, but have you got a preference between?
That's all I worry about. At the core, it's Tencent, and I argue with my dear friend Alec Abraham, who analyzes everything that they do. And I say, just forget about it. There's 256 pages dedicated to delivery and so on, and one page dedicated to Tencent, and that really makes up 95% or even more of their underlying profit. So it's all Tencent. It could be. I'm very interested in what they're going to do if they do sell Meituan. Because that hasn't been a great performer. That could unlock 71 billion. I'm just worried they might recklessly spend it. I'm hoping they give it back to us. But I'm very interested to see what will come out of that. If they do sell that, that's going to give them a huge amount of cash to look at. Yeah,
I think they'll throw it into their iFood business in Brazil, because that business is now going into, and with Meituan, it's going into Brazil to compete. I think that they're not going to give it to shareholders. David, let's stay with you. Great question. I've held Tesla for 5 years, back when Elon Musk wasn't a crazy man. I don't know. I think he was always maybe a little crazy. I've done incredibly well. Is it time to take money? Is there more possibility here? Tesla, this is a PE of over 100. I mean, it's priced as a tech stock. With respect, they make cars.
I would never sell that company. You can't read it. But, he has this ability to come and go. And I think he's in a coming type stage now, especially with the release of these robo-taxis, which I think is going to be very important. And it works. But he's an incredible person. I can't stand him, but I mean, still, he's got a brain there which we can't discount. I don't hold it. I've never held it, but I wouldn't advise you to sell it. I would just keep going, literally, for the ride, robotaxi or not.
Yeah, and you're up 400% in 5 years with Ain't Shabby. Chantal, Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, it's also a stock that I've never liked from a long-term investment perspective because the fundamentals don't match up with the valuation, right? As you said, it's an automaker, a little bit of renewable energy exposure, but trading at 100 times PE. And what is reflected in that 100 times PE is really the cult personality of Elon Musk and the followers. I like to call them musketeers. I think a lot of people call them musketeers, but the musketeers really bidding up that share price whenever there's something exciting happening around that stock and sustaining that valuation, that very kind of premium valuation relative to automaker peers. So, I mean, I don't think it's a good buy, but I agree with David. It's very difficult to say you should sell Tesla because you do have that kind of fail stop of the musketeers getting in whenever the share price falls. It is a wild ride, though. I mean, I would much rather trade Tesla than invest in Tesla. I can tell you that.
It was up 10% on Monday when they launched their self-driving in Texas, which I think was only 5 cars, and there's a safety driver. But I take your point. I like the musketeer theory, absolutely. Chantal, question coming through. Attack, strong trading update. I've got some property in ETFs. Should I look at Attack? That was a good update from them. I mean, the Mall of Africa is that waterfall precinct is a gem of a space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they've portfolio managed more recently by selling a stake in Waterfall to the government employee pension fund. And that's resulted in them being able to pay down a lot of debt. At the same time, their trading metrics keep on improving. And now they're going to pay out a dividend that's 27% higher than it was last year, which is phenomenal for the South African property sector. One thing that I also picked up from that pre-close update is that they're looking to refinance the debt that they have left. They're going to refinance at much better rates, I think. So that means we've got another year of dividend distribution per share that's probably going to exceed in terms of growth relative to the rest of the property sector. So I would be very happy to hold Attack. I think it's one of the standouts for me in the REIT space at the moment.
David, Attack, I've never been to Mall of Africa. It's too big. It's just too big for me. I'll lose my car. David, your take on Attack?
I can't say anything further than Chantal. I chose it as a stock pick 1 year, haven't done well on it, but credit to the managers there. And I don't follow it, and I didn't follow the update. I think I was somewhere stuck on a plane when it came out. I really don't have anything intelligent to add.
No, Chantal had lots of intelligence for us. Chantal, let's come to you. Health stocks. I don't much like the local offering. What could I potentially look at globally? What would be on your shopping list globally for health stocks? I'm lazy in that regard and just go for an ETF. Maybe you've got more nuance in terms of an offshore health company.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I look at offshore health, it really isn't that exciting if we're looking at healthcare insurers, for example, or major hospital groups. Very similar to what we have in South Africa. I think the excitement offshore lies in the pharmaceutical space. So I really like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. I think Novo Nordisk is cheap as chips at the moment, particularly after a recent sell-off with a whole kind of fight with hims and hers that's selling compounded version or fake versions of their weight loss drugs. But I think that's a really exciting space. And then the other space that I think is really great is the healthcare REITs. Now, there's a lot of activity actually on the JSE related to the UK healthcare REITs at the moment. We had PHP list and then Assura, and now PHP is trying to buy Assura. But what I like about the healthcare REIT space generally, and you can find them in most markets, including now the JSE, is that you basically have this very stable return profile and growth profile in terms of rentals. And you've got a tenant that really can't go anywhere because they're mainly tenanted by kind of government entities, big hospital groups, or let's say your town's GP. So yeah, I mean, it's very specialized, and it's an area of the market that I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever heard of a hospital moving, so I think you're right in that. David?
I still like the fatty drugs, obesity and diabetes, and they're going through a bit of a rough time. But pharmaceuticals is a tough area. And Simon, having just come back from the US and having come back from Boston, which is really the center of where so much happens there, especially in biotech, it's a tough area. And the problem is the middleman. That's where all the issues around the political debate over health price, about healthcare and drugs takes place. And they've got to sort that out. So that's where the political infighting is in those areas. In terms of the drug company, they continue to produce incredible, drugs at the moment. There's so much development there, but you've got to sort out what's happening in the middle, and that's not going to go away. So for the meantime, I would go with Chantal with both Eli Lilly, and I'm a long-suffering Novo Nordisk person. Yeah, but if you hold it for the long term, Chantal, you'll do fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Chantal's got lots of long term. Some of us maybe a little bit less. David, you probably missed this because you were on planes. We had an update from Grinrod yesterday. The question coming today: what are the panel's thoughts on Grinrod? Thought it looked quite good. New CEO shouldn't be any concern. David, Grinrod, the little shipping company that actually no longer ships.
I'm completely out of touch. I'm dead scared to even open my mouth on this one. I have followed it, and I know that they had certain issues. It should be doing well, simply because of its exposure to Mozambique, at a time where our harbors are under pressure, and that it's a logistic company. But I'm a little out of touch, not having updated the trading update, or having read the trading update.
Chantal, the trading update was that Maputo had the troubles, this political violence of post the election last year. That seems broadly behind them. They seem back on track.
Yeah, and they've increased their exposure to Maputo as well, which I think will be quite positive for them longer term. And I think it will be earnings accretive either immediately or very, very quickly. They've executed exceptionally well there, and I think that the growth there will continue. They've also won a big contract in Richards Bay, and I think that the partnership that they are the willingness to partner with Transnet at ports and in rail as well could help them longer term as the the logistics bottlenecks in South Africa come to a point where we have to solve them and have to solve them actively. So I like Grinrod as a concept. I just think it's been a little bit of a tough time for them more recently with the strikes in Mozambique, low commodity prices also not in their favor. Yeah. And then you've got the CEO change. It's very interesting to me that the CEO went on to become he went away to become the CFO at Kumba Iron Ore. Yeah. He used to work at Anglo American. He's back in the Anglo American stable. And I wonder if there's a succession plan with him there that we might not know about. But I don't think it was anything, there was a sinister reason for him leaving or anything wrong specifically with Grinrod, just based on what's happening at Kumba Iron Ore.
I'd forgotten he used to be at Anglo, of course. That was where he originated. Yeah, absolutely. So here's a left field. Maybe you can help on it. Psilocybin, I got it just after IPO. Paid far too much for it. Massive deal announced last year. No action happening. Chantal, I got to say, I remember that deal that they're a SPAC. They're going to be doing an asset. I have seen few more insider party deals in my life. Is there anything around psilocybin except for, I don't know, taking time?
No, I think I don't really know what to say.
If you see Chantal struggling, then you know this is really left field. Yeah. I want to see you battle through this one, Chantal.
Okay. They listed as a SPAC.
Yes.
The intention from the start was for the SPAC to acquire psilocybin pharmaceuticals, which was the brainchild of the CEO of the SPAC. And also he's also the CEO of the pharmaceutical business. I think he's called Khabil Duran. They have big dreams in terms of developing kind of cannabis as a product in the South African market as well as in the Australian market. They've done some development and they do have a small product set, but it hasn't really translated into anything meaningful just yet. So I think if you want to play the cannabis theme and you're excited about the cannabis market in South Africa and Australia, then this could be one that you need to, that would interest you, but you're going to have to be in it for a very long time. And there's a really good chance that it doesn't work out at all. So
Yeah,
Leave
but
it
I
at
think
that.
those are the 2 points. Long time and it might not work. David, do you have anything to add to psilocybin?
No.
Do you even...
Not on cannabis. I have no interest in developing that. I just
Do you even know what a SPAC is? Special Purpose Acquisition Company.
Spec I know,
Okay.
but I mean cannabis, I don't know. I avoid anything like that. Walk through New York, that's all you smell. Now,
Yeah, apparently. Chantal, we buy cars.
Yeah.
There was questions about it on Monday. There's been news reports now coming out that they might start looking at selling new vehicles. And I got to say, apparently most people will sell their car to We Buy Cars and then go buy a car somewhere else. And they're like, well, hang on, we want to capture that new space. Does that add to the thesis? On Monday, we were saying, look, the stock has run hard. It was close to 60. Would new cars add luster to them?
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting avenue of growth for them, because I think it will just be a really interesting one to see how they actually position it. But it will make them more defensive, less exposed to the cycles within the used vehicle space. But it will open them up to the cycles in the new vehicle space, though. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I want them to actually, one part of me wants them to stick to what they know, because they still have a lot of growth room and they have a really clear strategy in used vehicles. But I think that this could be complementary. I just don't know how they're going to position it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Stick to your knitting, but maybe they're smarter than I am. David?
Simon, they have to do this. I think they can take their model to a certain point. And, they love to sell old cars, and also they also have to ensure the quality of the cars that they sell. And that's been a problem. So I think it's a relatively new business that has to keep reshaping its model. It has to reshape its strategy. And I think they're going to go to the low end. I don't think they're going to go into the Chinese side of it, but they'll certainly find the kind of cars to sell that that people would buy who are prepared to sell them their vehicles. So I think it's quite intelligent, and they'll do it on a small basis. But they're so big now, they can't be Honest Joe of Jewel Street or something like that. They have to relook at where they are. I would go with them. I would, and they're smart people. So I would, and they've got very, very strong systems, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's a move in probably the right direction.
So David, here's a painful one. I've held Nike for almost a decade. At one point, I was up a lot, and by that I mean lots and lots, and now I've gone nowhere. What to do? Nike. I mean, they really did lose the game there at a point.
Just avoid any of those companies, especially those branded businesses at the low end, where it's so competitive, where you don't know from one year to the next, whether it's Puma, Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, all of those, they come and go. Just avoid them. I think it's very, very difficult to read. Do you know what the next big thing is in sneakers? You can't tell. And you've got to leave it to your children to decide, and they change also. It's a very difficult area to decide upon. Even if you look at from football gear or soccer gear or something, Liverpool are now going from Nike to Adidas. Next year it's to Puma.
Yeah, look, I don't even know what the last big thing in sneakers was, never mind the next big thing. We've got to go stock picks. Chantal, capital appreciation. I spoke to Bradley Sachs this morning. A really good business, and those terminals are doing great guns.
Yeah, and a fun fact, capital appreciation also listed as a SPAC. But this one actually acquired stuff that makes a lot of sense, and it wasn't there was not a lot of funny business involved in it. But yeah, I mean, capital appreciation really is a payments business and a software development business. The payments business has been growing very quickly. It's focused on terminals, and they have a few other products in between. But they've really been innovating in terms of the terminal product that they offer. They rent and they sell terminals to merchants, and I think digitization and payment continues, and the technology required will continue to intensify. And they've got the software development side in the background that also actually helps this terminal business. The software development side does a lot of other stuff as well. Unfortunately, it has been overstaffed over the last couple of years. Yeah. They're trying to right-size that now to bring that part of the business back towards more sustainable margins long term. But they've got really great IP in that space as well. So I think from a longer term perspective, the stock I think is a really solid investment. It's trading on a forward P of below 7 times, forward dividend yield of about 9%, even after the post the trading statement 2 days ago. So yeah, putting my money behind capital appreciation.
Yeah, and they've got a new one coming, which works with NFC, which makes your Android or Apple phone a payment terminal as well. David, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
You know, Simon, top 3 in the top 10 companies in the US at the moment, 3 are semiconductors.
Yeah.
You've got NVIDIA, Broadcom, and TSM. Even though TSM is technically Taiwan, you know, it's still in the top 10. And I think we're experiencing unparalleled growth now. I just think we're going to get another massive wave of spending in AI-related companies, and just generally tech, and they're incredibly well placed. They're very smart. They're actually the powerhouse in the industry because they've got capabilities and leadership there that I think are unparalleled. So it's one that we haven't put too much attention on. But I think, I'm very happy to add them at this stage. Very, very crucial company if you're in AI.
Yeah, and Elon Musk's XAI is building the world's biggest data center. I think it wants 200,000 of those NVIDIA chips, which of course are all made at TSMC. That's all for StockWatch today. Thanks to our guest, David Shapiro, Sasfin Securities, going with TSMC, Chantal, Marx, FNB Wealth Investments, Capital Appreciation. Up next, The Close. Stay watching.
Thank you.